Basically, this is a short presentation about my dissertation, which explores the relationship between text messaging and social activity in a student group. The topic's been extremely interesting to study. My fundamental ideas and hypotheses have changed a number of times during this process. It's moved from text messaging and language, text messaging and reading and concentration, to laterally this focus. One interesting tidbit, the earliest text message was 1996, sent from a computer office to the first mobile phone. It said, semantic content was Merry Christmas. And the earliest telegram message, more than a century earlier, in 1844, was by Samuel Morse, What Hath God Wrought? It's very different, the gravitas of these dimensions. So to illustrate the pervasiveness, how many of you have a mobile phone? How many of you sent a text message yesterday? Not surprised. The prevalence of text messaging as a behavioural and communicational activity is incredible, with more than 99% of students in the UK owning a mobile phone and using it to send text messages. Our generation has grown up with text messaging as an integrated part of our lives. We're conditioned to using it from everything to sending a text to ask whether a friend has picked up some wine for the evening, or letting someone know when we'll be back home, to checking our bank balance. Taking a moment to think about the development of the technology, it is fascinating to consider that children now growing up with mobile phones as omnipresent and ubiquitous devices would barely have even been able to hold the first incarnation of the device in both hands. The importance they have to their users, in how they utilize and interact with their mobile phones, has grown and changed far faster than the devices themselves have shrunk. It is this importance, this present, and this change that makes the study of text messaging phenomenon a fascinating and valuable area of anthropological exploration. So, as we can see here, looking at some figures from the UK, the activity of text messaging as a behavioural and communicational revolution is developing at a rapid rate. Figures from the Mobile Data Association, a source with access to the entire volume of messages sent in the country, show this clearly. So, as I said on the slide, the total figure of messages sent in 2009 was a fantastic 96.8 billion, more than double the number of texts sent 3 years previously in 2006. The number was 42 billion. So the change in the volume of text messages sent per month in the UK, shown on the chart below, was more than 375% in the period of 7 years. So we're starting here, 2004, and increasing to that level, 2009. It's a fairly phenomenal increase. So this is complemented by a year-on-year view. So we can see in 2000, this is obviously a much more schematic graph I've drawn myself. In 2002, 16.8 billion messages were sent. In 2009, the total had risen to 96.8 billion messages. So the total was less than double in 3 years, from 2002 to 2005, which it illustrates fairly clearly, and then more than triple in 7 years. This is set in the context of a recent survey by UK-based internet wireless company, West Coast Cloud, who revealed that 1 in 5 children under 10 can text competently, and 10% of parents thought it was appropriate for children as young as 4 to own a mobile phone. Carried out on 2,000 parents, this has potentially great ramifications for the future of the trends we see here. Stats from the US are even more astonishing, featuring a much deeper gradient of increase in the figures from this country. The first graph shows the total number of text messages sent in the country over 2 one-month periods in consecutive years. The rise is of course quite staggering, but the comparative context no less so. 4 billion fewer messages were sent in this month than the entirety of the same year in the UK. Even taking into account relative population size, that's still a vast difference. The magnitude of the change that can be seen over a 2-year period in terms of individual text messages sent is even greater, with an increase of 360%. These figures illustrate the rise of text messaging as an activity in the US relative to voice calling, providing a fascinating context by revealing the increase in the phenomenon of text messaging relative to the number of phone calls made on the same devices. The ratios in 2005 and 2011 are quite astounding, with an increase of more than 2,000% between the two figures in a 6-year period. So the ratio you can see for 2005 is absolutely minute, only 1.45, and in 2011 it rises to 0.98. So a very simple graphical illustration of the rise in text messages in the US in contrast to the UK shows an absolutely ridiculous rise. I mean, you can see here, this is in millions. So the total in 2011 was 197 billion messages. By contrast, a decade earlier, in 2001, there were only 35.5 million messages were sent. That's a rise of more than 1,500% in a 5-year period, dwarfing the UK dynamic. Global texting figures corroborate this scale of continuous increase, with the number of mobile phones more than doubling in 5 years. So the key issues raised are how might these patterns be replicated across all the world and the various countries with different developmental frameworks. So we've seen the stats, but why does this matter? Fundamentally, mobile phones are tools, strongly linked to how we, as a species, manipulate our environment. Our hominin ancestors interacted with their physical environment in the most basic of technologies, the hand axe. Social evolution has quickly overtaken its biological equivalent as the central force for change, working in months and years and not generations. This is a crucial area of overlap and potential collaboration between both fields here at Kent, and something I find particularly fascinating. So how does the activity of text messaging tie into other social behaviour, specifically the social activities we engage in, and how do we depend on mobile phones in daily life? The range of uses and applications for text messaging is astounding, from the instantaneous transmission of instructions or plans to meet, coordinating cheating in tests or examinations, or even applied as a medical innovation to aid in smoking cessation or schizophrenia. So which methods were used and what exactly is being explored? I looked at 4 key factors: the average number of text messages sent in a day, the average number of active participation in social activities engaged in on a weekly basis, taken from the literature evaluating social activity. So I've looked at the amount of occasions in a week there'll be a meal with friends, sport with others, a party, going to the pub, or be engaging in a club or society meeting. So there's also analysing a score on the short personality inventory derived from the mainstream psychological literature, and a score on the text dependency inventory taken from a Japanese study and modified after piloting. So I used an online questionnaire, and one of the primary advantages of this is there's no missing data. So it's very major bonus for researchers. Distribution is easier than paper copies, it's faster and without cost. And some literature recommends online questionnaires as more interesting with a different level of engagement. For the sample group, anthropology students here at Kent, as I felt that interest and awareness in the study would likely lead towards a higher response rate, which is a major advantage in the data collection. So what do I seek to achieve? Exploring a different area than the existing literature, with no previous work exploring the same areas looked at or combining the same measures to explore the relationship between text messaging and sociality. How much time, Amy?
You have 2 minutes.
Okay, well, I'll have to skip through those and you can probably read it later on. So what did I expect to find? I expected the relationship between the amount of text messages sent and the amount of social activity engaged in to be much stronger in groups who are more dependent on text messages and have low score on the personality. Hypothesis 2 was that the personality would show a strong relationship with the amount of social activities the text messages sent. So it's acknowledging that text messaging is not the main factor in influencing social activity, though it may be involved. Hypothesis 3 was that the females will engage in high levels of texting more often than males, in accordance with literature and information in the public press. The text dependency should increase in correlation with the amount of text messages sent. We don't have time to review the literature, but basically let's skip right to the findings. So the box plot shows no apparent difference between the genders. However, the histogram, as you can see here, reveals that the higher levels of text messaging are much higher with females than males, and the validity indicators, as you can see on the right and the left, were well within acceptable ranges. So personality, in relation to one of my previous hypotheses, did exhibit a much stronger relationship with social activity than text messaging. The correlation was significantly higher. And this is one of the major findings, that the correlation between text messaging and text messaging and text dependency the correlation level was extremely high at 0.68, relative to the other findings. Oh, I'm sorry, I need to drink water. But it's awfully dry, apologies. Right. So, what's the relevance of future work? Bringing together different measures to explore new elements of the interface. Findings in relation to text messaging as a sort of technological and behavioural phenomenon. The questionnaire items asked participants to check their phones was well responded to. There's implications for future research. And defining the concept of sociality and personality in regard to interaction with technological phenomena. So the work carried out with younger groups could be potentially more useful, as it taps into the trends we looked at earlier in terms of understanding where these ideas might go in the future. So can I go on, Amy, or shall I wrap up?
Wrap up, please.
So what were the limitations of the study? The small sample group, the reliance of self-report text messages, the cross-sectional design, which meant that causality cannot be claimed, as I'm not looking at different groups over the same group over a different period, and the attempt to explore the psychological measures could be perceived as a weakness because of the lack of experience, my lack of experience in the field. Thank you very much for listening.